Never seen a smile so big on my little old lady's face until I tell her I'm going fishing all weekend. Pack up all of my baby, I make plans for 7:45, and I swing around, pick up my date for the weekend. Some reason she seems to please when I'm leaving. There's something I'm missing when I'm gone fishing. When I'm gone fishing. When I'm gone fishing.
Yeah, baby.
Yes, sir. Well, good evening, folks, dudes and deucesses. It's an honor to have you here, especially given the heat wave or whatever you want to call it that's going on out there. I know winter's coming, so I certainly don't want to mention any four-letter words or anything to spawn it on. But holy smokes, man! Somebody's got to pinch me. This is October. They're saying that we might break records for Halloween. Truly remarkable, but nonetheless, we'll take it, right? We'll take it because we know what's coming. So let's enjoy it while we can, and hopefully you guys are still wetting the line doing so. Steve Shaw's in the house. How you doing, buddy? Healing up, getting ready to go, getting ready to hopefully wet a line or two before the season ends. At least I'm hoping anyway, bud. I know you are too. Richard's in the house. How you doing, Richard? We have a few announcements you will probably want to pay attention to because you're sort of involved, but you already know the deal. I don't have to spoon feed you anything. You get it. You understand. Tony's in the house. Nice to see you. Lloyd, yeah, baby, all the way from Saskatchewan. It's a pleasure always. And of course, Brad, I know why you're here. And as I said, it's we'll talk about it unless that's. But nice to have you here, Brad, with us. Of course, Mark's in the house. I put my boat away. Oh, yeah, no kidding. I hope. I mean, all you got to do is fog it, I guess, Mark. But yeah, geez, with the weather that's supposed to be coming, I wouldn't want to be putting it away anytime soon. Jeremy's in the house. How you doing? Steven's here, and of course, Mr. Vitani. Good to see you, Joe. All right, lots to talk about, lots to discuss, lots to get to. Of course, there is a host of things that we will be announcing. We do have some winners to declare tonight. If, in fact, you casted a vote on this pick within our timeline of CFN, we thank you for doing so. We will be announcing the winner of the Outdoor Flavor Prize Pack, and I'm looking forward to sort of going over some of the answers, some really, really good answers. There's some folks out there that they definitely missed their calling as waymasters. They're pretty bang on. So stay tuned to that. But before we go any further, let's get to a few announcements. For those who participate in the CFN Fish Off, great news. All of the prizes as of right now are out. They have all been sent. So stay tuned. Stand by your post box, your mailbox, whatever box it is that the mail comes to. And hopefully we don't have to get into the practice of checking on tracking numbers or anything like that. But needless to say, all of the prizes have been sent out. So congrats again. And I look forward to seeing some of the posts from some of those prizes that have been sent out. And of course, a big shout out to the folks up here, Shimano, wrapping all those prizes up. I tell you, it means a lot. It means a lot to know that you've got the support from a company like Shimano. Whether you use their products or you don't, whether you like their products or you don't, at the end of the day, an organization, a company that to me is considered one of the big boys here in the Canadian industry, has our back. It's a good feeling. Good feeling. So Shimano, thanks so much for that. Really appreciate it. And of course, all the prizes that were made available to our folks that participate in the CFN Fish Off. And stay tuned for further news because there is lots to talk about. Mike and I will be getting on here shortly to discuss some of the upcoming events that are going to be happening in 2025, possibly a Winter Fish Fest, but keep your fingers crossed. Of course, Richard, this is part of the announcement. He has been doing a fantastic job gathering all your orders, answering all your questions for all of this wonderful swag. And a big shout out to the Frost family who made a post earlier today showing off the goods. And again, folks, we truly, I can't say enough about that kind of support. Being able to see our colors, I don't care who you are. If you make a shirt and somebody buys it and wears it, even if you give it to them for that matter, to see folks running around with something that you truly believe in, I can't think of a better feeling. I really can't. Not offhand anyway. But so anyway, all those who have purchased, we really appreciate it. And of course, reach out to Richard Dunlop if in fact you are looking, if you haven't purchased something and maybe you want something for Christmas. I don't know. It makes a great Christmas gift, and it's very light. That's the beautiful thing, very light. And of course, these are flex fit hats, my favorite hats. So nice to see you getting all that done, Richard. I really appreciate it, bud. And of course, the entire CFN community commends you. Of course, it's hard for me to follow the comments. Oh, look at that, Brad Frost. As a matter of fact, look who's here. How you doing, buddy? Corey's in the house. Oh, we got a few late arrivers. We've got Jay, Eve's here. Oh, it's nice to see you folks. Scott McKenzie's in the house. Yeah, baby. Our good friend Ed McKenzie. Holla. Nice to see you, Ed. Always a pleasure to see you, bud. So yeah, as I said, reach out to Richard in regards to that. We do have an announcement when it comes to the Made in Canada Tackle Show. We do have our next event. Now, a lot of folks would be wondering, why is it just the one that we're talking about tonight? Well, as it is right now, Brad and I have managed to put one together. Brad, for the most part, has done the majority of the work. So a big shout out to Brad in regards to getting this all set up. This show will be held at the West Niagara Agricultural Center and Fairgrounds in Grassy, Ontario, which is the Grimsby area. It goes on to say many things about overwhelming vendor interest. You do not have to be present both days, but the show dates will be Friday, April 25th, 2025, 4 p.m. to 9 p.m., and Saturday, April 26th to 2025, from 9 a.m. to 3 p.m. So the idea is setup will be on the Friday from 12 p.m. to 4. Of course, we will have a show that runs right after that. So the folks who can make it, that's great. People can use it as the setup time. But at the end of the day, it is going to be a 2-day show, kind of unique in that one of the days is the setup and the other day is the full-fledged show. What's really cool about this venue is if you have an RV, if you have a means of camping out, there's electricity. So there is an opportunity for folks. If you want to drive down, if you've got a long drive, instead of getting in a hotel, there's an opportunity for you to have a campground. So a unique opportunity in itself. Had no idea that the property allowed this, but Brad was kind enough to get that kind of information. So big shout out to that. The unfortunate thing, this is the only down part of the show, is tables and chairs are not made available as they have been and we've experienced in Woodstock. So we are hoping that our vendors can be resourceful and grab their own and bring them. But if need be, if you truly need a table, a chair, we will do our best to try and meet all of your wishes and wants. But just know that we are starting with nothing. So we don't have any tables and chairs at this venue. So by all means, we hope that you folks can be resourceful. But we'll be making more announcements as we go further. Now, to honor our good friend Brad, something that I wanted to talk about tonight, which of course is something that I have been working with because I've had the luxury of having a prototype. It's a plastic. I want to say it's new to these eyes. I've seen similar plastics, not to get into the finer details or what have you, but this is a prototype that has been put together by POW Castings. I've had the luxury, as I said, to fish with it as few times as I've been out, but I wanted to share a little bit of the backstory, if you will, or at least what has brought us to here and why I'm telling you about this plastic. And in my opinion, it's a plastic that's definitely going to be in my tackle box, and for all the wonderful things that POW Casting is doing for CFN and the entire fishing community at large. I encourage you to take a good hard look at some of the products that they offer, but this one in particular, only because, as I said, it has proven itself to me in the few times that I've been out. So let's have a listen. So there it is. That is the Detroit River Dinner Bell. That is what it is being called. I have yet to use it on the Detroit River. I started here at Horwood Lake Lodge. I had Walter as my partner, and of course Dean Howard, some of Horwood's finest, absolutely. And I tell you, boy, did they ever work. I could have got more footage since we were up there for a week, but unfortunately, I only had a certain amount. Now, going back to that photo there, just so you know, they do come in a variety of sizes. Those sizes will be made available in the coming weeks, months, because, as I said, these are going to be going on sale sooner than later. And, of course, there is a jig head that is specially made for it as well that Brad will be giving out details going forward in the future with. But as I said, these things really did a number on the walleye, but especially the pike. Pike definitely loved that bait, but certainly caught a good number of walleye. And you know how those who have been to Horwood, they know how good the walleye fishing is there. Then, of course, we get to Camp McIntosh. Smallies love them. They absolutely love them. I managed to catch a decent smallie. I think that was 18 and a half there. And then, of course, it also helped me haul in this 36-inch pike. Again, couldn't keep the pike off it. I would almost say that this is more of a pike bait than anything else, but I would be incorrect in saying so. Then, of course, I had my good buddy, Big Jim, who I fished with just recently. This is all I fished with. And I asked Jim if he did hear the bell ring, and of course, I think he did. Because I did bring in a couple or a few fish. I couldn't keep the pike off it. In fact, it was the pike the majority of the day that I was catching. But needless to say, this particular plastic, whether you have an underspin, it gets everybody interested in eating. It certainly did a wonderful job for me, and I'm looking forward to seeing the packaging and everything else that's going to go with it. But needless to say, that is something that is coming very, very soon. Is going to be available and will be available for sure at our shows. So stay tuned to that. But yeah, really interesting stuff. And of course, it means, unfortunately, Brad, we're going to have to go down to the Detroit River to test this bugger out. But that is the Detroit River Dinner Bell. And oh, this is why we love you, Sean. 500 and some natural. That's awesome. Yeah, white colors are incredible. But yes, thanks, Sean, for that. Thanks for the support. And you're like me, dude. I would literally fish with them exclusively, whether it be a drop shot presentation, if you are very good at swimming a jig, if you just like jigging it off bottom. I'm sure there's other available presentations that I'm drawing a blank on. But yeah, if you like swimming a jig, these are a definite go-to. I'd like to say not a must-have, but a must-try. You must try them. At the end of the day, it's worth it. Trust me, they're worth it. So try them out. On that note, what else would I want to say? Oh yes, we do have an announcement. This came up actually just recently. Our good friend Warren reached out to me from Horwood Lake Lodge, and we announced the details of the upcoming CFN retreat. And it's kind of a unique retreat. We're not going to make an announcement just yet, but this is kind of unique in the sense of when it's happening, the time of year, the year itself. Well, we're going to keep that all under wraps from right now, but needless to say, it's going to be kind of special. But any of the details we will be sharing. But needless to say, we have enjoyed. We're going into our 7th year. This is our 7th annual CFN retreat at Horwood Lake Lodge. We've been there 6 years. Into our 7th year, they now have to raise the price. And a lot of folks will be like, oh, Scotty. I'm like, listen, at the end of the day, how they've managed to keep the price at $875 for the week is beyond me. Unfortunately, things have to change. As everything else is going up, so does the price of the week. A regular price is $1,500. If you were to go there throughout the course of the rest of the season or the rest of the year, the fact that we're able to get it under $1,000 for our CFN community, tip of the hat to the folks up at Horwood Lake Lodge. Thanks, Doris and Warren, for keeping it real, keeping it reasonable, and allowing us the opportunity to enjoy, I would say, the kind of fishing that Canada boasts about at Horwood Lake Lodge. So if you are interested, like me, to join us again next year in 2025 up at Horwood Lake Lodge, please reach out to Warren and Doris. They are awaiting your call as we speak. Make sure you get your butt booked in a bed, because it's first come, first serve. And I do know that there were quite a few people that already booked for next year this past August. So keep that in mind. Of course, I wanted to mention this again. Our good friend Chris Yalowicka is paying tribute to his lost brother Marty, and of course, we're sorry for your loss, Chris, and the entire Yalowicka family. Marty, he served, but I think it goes far beyond that, based on the tribute that Chris is showing to his brother. And on his 50th birthday, he introduced the Marty's Marauder to help support our troops. Yali Fish Lures is donating all proceeds from the sale of 100 custom moon eyes and 100 custom hooligans to our local Lincoln and Welland Regiment and the Lincoln and Welland Band. Thank you, brother, for your service. And as I said, it is an absolute wonderful tribute to his late brother. And of course, we will make sure that we post that on our page. So anybody that's interested, because they're great baits, fantastic hard baits. So as I said, if you are interested, this is a perfect opportunity to buy some. Just some interesting things that I saw today, one of which I wanted to share with you now. The other one I'm going to share with Jay. But I saw this today and it made me chuckle. I'm going to quit I estimate this evening. Oh, I'd be back at the dock at 9 a.m. If it were me. But would the same be for you? Would you be able to last the day based on the money you have? Or would you be like me and you just turn around, throw the boat back on the trailer, and away you go? Funny stuff. But yeah, needless to say, there's so many memes. And I'd like to do this maybe going forward, is adding some of these things to our weekly routine here at CFN Live, just to spawn on some interesting I don't know, interaction, engagement, whatever you want to call it. But I certainly don't want to turn into one of those shows that do nothing but show memes and get people. I know that's all fun and games, but there's lots of shows and venues to go for that. I'd maybe like to do it on a fishing side of things. So if you do see any cool memes, if you see any cool stuff that is in, I would say in the nature of good taste, as opposed to having all kinds of swear words and what have you, profanity, by all means, send them to me, because I'd be interested in sharing them on a live. But I thought that was really cool to see. I don't know if I have anything else. A couple things here, there. No, you know what? At the end of the day, it is time to bring on the big man. The reason we all come here each and every week. Big Jim McLaughlin's coming up right after this.
When he was born, he tried to reel in the umbilical cord. Bass named him as their personal best. His power pole came with a stripper. Forward-facing sonar uses him to find fish. Chuck Norris is his co-angler. He is the most interesting fisherman in the world. Stay fishing, my friends.
Stay fishing indeed. And there he is, the one and only Big Jim McLaughlin.
Hang on.
Uh-oh.
Yeah. I was looking for my boxing game to put over my head after last weekend.
Oh, geez. Buddy, dude, there's no need to feel shame. But as I said, it was truly inspiring because at the end of it, what did you say to me, Scotty? I really can't wait to go fishing again.
I was at it right till the end. I'll show you. I took a picture of this. Here's a part of the trails, and I came into a spot. You can see the two waypoints at the bottom, right here.
Oh, yeah. Now, is that the place we passed over on the way out?
Yeah, remember I told you I wanted to fish?
Yeah.
Scotty, I spent an hour on it. I never set the hook. So I looked up, and there's some rocks right beside it there. And I went out of the rocks. I made 2 casts, 3 casts maybe, and I caught two fish. I caught 2 fish. Just boom, boom, right away. Just crushed it. Pull the rod out of my hands. So I thought, well, I'm going to fish rocks. Remember I told you I got caught on this with Lewis? We caught about a dozen fish on that rock, and then we never caught a fish off a rock. So you can see I went right across the lake to the other side where I've never been, and I fished all that rock. That's probably about, I don't know, a kilometer of shoreline. Never got a sniff. It's got like 14, 15-foot holes in front of it, and the places where the rocks falling off the cliff are right on the edge of the deep water. Like if you wanted to write a book, it's what you would put in it, eh? And then as you can see, I had to go back around the corner. See the way I came back around the island?
Oh, yeah.
I had to go back to the other spot where I caught all the big fish. I mean, that's 2 times in a row now. That place, since I've lived here, the day I found it, I probably caught 6 or 8 fish off it, 3 or 4 that were over 4 pounds, maybe, I caught a couple of big ones out of it with Lewis. I got nothing out of it with you. I got nothing out of it again here this weekend. I was out with Jeff Dix last weekend.
Yeah.
We spent a day out there. The guy from Limestone Lures, he's a great guy. Veteran, just a wonderful guy. Got a great little daughter. But it was just like, it just, how could this happen? And I mean, I'm talking to guys. And then the funny thing was I catch the 2 fish. And there's a boat about, I don't know, 300 or 400 yards away, and here it comes over. Like I'm talking, guys in the boat's probably 140 grand in the boat.
Oh,
got a 300 on it. It's got the 2 power poles at the back. It's got 5 graphs. He says to me, I started off on Charleston Lake. I never got a bite, so I came over here. I said, how did you do over here? He said, I'm leaving right now. So that was like, the answer. He says, I kind of thought that might be you because I saw a crankbait on the end of a rod. And I said, so it had nothing to do with a guy the size of me sitting in the front of the Lund.
Yeah, that's
silhouette. It was so funny though. But we had a good chat for about 15 minutes. I still can't place the guy. I know him, but I can't place. I recognize his voice, but I just I just can't put a name to him. And
you're usually pretty good. I have to say, I every once in a while I take a look back when you throw out a name when we're together, like, wow, holy smokes, you're an encyclopedia, Rolodex, whatever you want to call it. You're really good.
Yeah, I still have a Rolodex, you know that?
Yeah, yes. Yeah.
Hey, you think that's funny?
Well, no, I don't.
I took a picture of a lure sitting on my computer one day, and a guy phones me and says, what's this doing on your desk? I said, I don't know, I never threw it out.
Jim, I'm going to tell you, you talk about old school. My office, to anybody who knows me that's watching here right now, they know I got all of these sticky notes along my wall.
Yeah, I used to have those.
Phone number, every possible contact I could need. I mean, yeah, we can all put them in phones, but what happens if you lose this? It's hard to lose a wall.
I used to be the sticky note king.
Oh,
I run out of small ones now, but that's how I used to buy sticky notes.
Yeah.
And I had walls behind my desk. I had piles of them behind me. I only have the big ones left now. But we still have ones from in the Rapala days over there from Suffolk's line on Tammy's desk. They're like this high, and they'd say Suffolk's on the side. I still got two of those.
No, I got this is interesting. Jeremy asks, was it possibly Lawrence?
No, the boat was worth. Lawrence.
That's funny, Jeremy. That's actually funny. That's really funny, given the fact that we do all these lives, and outside of the fact, obviously, Jim has met Lawrence many times. That's actually really funny. I like that. Well done, Jeremy. Well done. One place,
the Narwhal King.
yeah, one place that we it sounds like we need to get down. Sparkus is saying that St. Clair right now is on fire.
Yeah, I've heard that from lots of people.
Oh, well, he's heading out with,
Dog Lake over here on the weekend.
yeah.
Simcoe on the weekend. Guys had over 30 pounds once
Is
again.
that right?
Yeah.
Wow. Well, needless to say,
2 legs away, fish are jumping in the boat.
wow.
And I mean, when we went out there on Saturday, I says to him, I says, quite a few boats out here. There was like maybe 6 or 8 boats in them. You know, it's not that big of a lake.
Yeah.
Within an hour or two, they were all gone. Because they weren't catching. It just I talked to a buddy of mine who lives over there. He's had a family cottage there all his life, and he said to me, I couldn't believe it on the weekend. I never caught a fish. He said I caught a crappie on a topwater bait on Saturday morning, and I never got a bite after that.
Interesting.
I said, well, crappie on a topwater is kind of cool.
It's different.
He said it was like a 12-inch crappie, and he said it hit a great big topwater bait, a great big walk the dog bait, like a Zara spook. Hit that, it blew right off the top, and then that was it. It just came in under the lure.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Well, Sparkus has taken out our good friend Richard Elliott, who won one of our many prizes that we gave back during our next gen. I believe it was next gen, or was that? It was one of the draws we did. But Richard is cashing in. Sparkus, thanks so much for making that available. And of course, Richard is going to take a host of pictures, and he's not a bad guy to fish with. So that should be
24 pounds in an hour, 24 pounds in 8 pitches, just to be the deal for largemouths. You found them right. Well, I've told you the stories about Rocky and I going back to the lock.
Yes.
We got out of the lock. We had like 26 pounds of largemouths in the boat, and we went back to the lock because we didn't want to be seen on this patch of weeds by anybody. And we went back to the lock, and it was still open from the guys coming up. He was still putting the boats in for it to go down, the first trip down in the morning. And he looks at it, he goes, what's wrong, you guys? I said, it's too crowded over there. There's about 10 boats all around on the one spot. Well, we were a mile and a half away from where we were fishing. And we just went back and went down. It was
wow.
Stuff like that used to happen in the old days in the weed beds. No, I'm talking largemouths, not smallmouths. It's a little more time involved sometimes with the smallmouths drifting around with them in bunches,
Now, I'm sure, Jim, you're like me. As much as you love to hear the stories of folks having great days out on the water, you do appreciate those who are honest. And Sean, I'm with you, dude. I mean, at the end of the day, I'm pretty sure before you took this trip, you probably mentioned once or twice the term Smash Fest, which would probably have led you down the road of being skunked. But I'm glad nothing else happened. I have not seen a latest edition from Dipshit Outdoors, so I'm going to assume everything went okay with the trip, other than the fact that you didn't catch him. But Sean, you're not alone.
Like Moose has caught every fish he's caught in his life in front of you, Sean?
Okay. See, you have to be this guy to say stuff like that, because the rest of it's just.
I had a guy tell me once that he caught 165 largemouths in an afternoon.
Yeah.
And I forget, but we figured it out. So I said, come on now, Brian, that means you caught one every 44 seconds. That's for like casting, retrieving, fighting them, getting them off the hooks. No. He was the guy I told you about that had the counter.
Mm-hmm.
And I told him, I said, oh, that's the problem. He goes, what? I said, you're supposed to zero the counter each time you go fishing.
That's hilarious. It's kind of like the infamous comment that everybody makes when their graph is lighting up. Yeah, dude, take it off demo mode. You got that darn thing on demo mode again. But nonetheless, it's nice to see folks that are willing to be honest and admit, you know what? Everybody has.
Hey, the most largemouth I ever caught in a day was 126. That was Clayton Lake like 35 years ago.
Wow.
126 fish. And every one I caught came on a Lindy swipe tail worm.
Jeez.
every one. It was just, well, it's more than that. It's probably like, oh my God, it's longer than that because it was before I met Tammy. It's like over 40 years ago.
Holy
I was
smokes.
with, who was I with? I forget. But it was one of the first days where I got really hit the fish on a Texas rig worm.
Mhm.
And you couldn't do any wrong. You couldn't do any wrong. You could go to cast this way, and by accident, if you would have let it go and it would have went behind you, if you had a spinning rod, I didn't. But if you would have made a mistake, by the time you spun around and started to bring it back, you would have had one.
Yeah.
There was fish swirling all over the lake. We that 126 fish, I bet you 20 of them where you heard a splash, you threw the worm over, and they ate it before it got to the bottom. It was like, I'd never seen anything like it in my life to this day. I saw a guy stay out up at, what's the place you fly? Not Beauchene. What's the place you fly into out of Cochrane there?
Oh,
Charlie McDonald's place.
Air Ivanhoe.
No, you fly out of Cochrane,
Oh,
the lake, Kisagami.
Kasagami. Sorry, yeah.
I saw a guy fish there. I mean, there's a million walleyes this big in Kisagami, or this big. And I saw a guy stay out there one day. He started about 8 in the morning, and he stayed with the guide until almost dark so he could catch 100.
Oh, that's
And
incredible.
he caught them all day long.
That size.
They were all like 2.5 to 3.5 pounds.
That's
Almost every one of them. It's just a giant school of fish, but that happens up there, you know, because of how shallow it is.
Yeah.
That real tannic water. It's absolutely awesome.
George is saying how much the smallies love the Ned rigs this weekend, 20 to 25 feet. Fish any shallower, it wasn't. It was all northern pike.
Yeah, a lot. See, we never caught a pike, Scotty, all day.
Yeah, that's
We
true.
never got bit off.
Yeah. Well,
You know,
Well,
how many did we catch? Like half a dozen
yeah, no kidding.
or whatever. You know, that's not a lot, but it was just, you know, incidental, you know.
100%. Do you know the answer to this? How much did Moose need to weigh in a check? Did you see the post? I didn't see it,
No.
but I'm going to probably say it wasn't much.
2/10 of a pound.
That's exactly it. A new contest. Running a new contest, folks. Yes. How much did Moose miss by? Yeah, no, I'm glad that folks are still getting out fishing. I know there was a tournament on the weekend, which was nice to see. He wouldn't post it. Okay, so there's a backstory there. Yeah, all right. Well, let's leave that alone then.
We've all been there. Hell, I've been there. I've been in it 2 weekends in a row.
Now, as a tournament angler and boat owner, this is something that I think probably has been around a while. I wanted to show you this because this is a neat thing that I think everybody who owns a boat should get it in their boat like ASAP. I know it's expensive. I know props are not cheap, but this tool, I think, is something that should be mandatory in every boat. Have a listen.
Boat. How many times have you seen guys come in, they say, well, man, I hit something, I broke an ear or slung an ear on a prop, and I couldn't fish the rest of the day, but I got a prop in my truck. Well, it's stupid. Don't put one in your truck. Keep it in your boat. That's where you're going to need it at. But this cool little thing here that holds that down on top of that prop dock is, you know, if that situation arises on the water or anywhere else you want to change a prop, you take your wrench and you can unscrew it right there. It's a simple process. You want to tighten it back up the other way, do the same thing right there as you're tightening it up. So if you're looking for something to keep that prop to help you there, when you change that prop, Bob's Machine Shop, the prop dock.
Yeah, cool little thing.
Now, Jim, has something like that been around a while and I've just had my head in the sand?
I started seeing these a few years ago. There was other things that they had that were, but they weren't that slick. Like that's just somebody thought about that. Like when I fished tournaments, I had a synthetic prop that I carried. It was yellow. I forget the name of it, but it came with the prop and a wrench. The wrench was yellow too, and it had a piece in the handle that popped off and fit onto the cavitation plate.
I remember that.
And you could, I carried. Only had to use it once, and I went over to the shore and jumped in the water and. up to my waist in it. And I had my buddy holding the boat out. I had a guy he was an amateur in the boat, and he actually felt really bad because he started up the motor. I had a giant fish on a big old largemouth.
Yeah.
And I stuck it right at the edge of the shore, and we were drifting in. And I told him, I said, just start the big motor and just give it a little touch there to move us out a little bit there, and it was everything was smooth. And then I don't know what happened, but he trimmed it down and he boom, 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 boom. He felt terrible,
Jeez.
And it was done. Like, you couldn't use the prop. Like, the boat was going like this. It was done.
Well,
Fortunately, it didn't do anything to the drive shaft. But I hopped out and I changed that. And you could only go about, I don't know, maybe 25 miles an hour with it, I think was the recommendation.
Yes. Yeah.
But it had a stainless steel insert and then this yellow stuff. It was some synthetic stuff. But it was a small prop. Yeah, it was a small prop. But this is really cool.
This is slick. And unfortunately, what the video didn't show, just because I had somebody call it in at the time that I was recording it, but that fits over top of a mount that's in the back of your boat. You can put it just about anywhere. You got a wing nut screw and a washer that go on top of this piece that he's showing going in at the you can see the whole plate. And to me, as Corey's mentioned, that's what we've always used is wood. But the way this fits on that cavitation plate, I think is brilliant. Absolutely brilliant.
Yeah, that's like, if I still fish tournaments, I'd order one of those tonight.
Amen. 100%.
That's really, really cool.
Jim, I know you've been out and about. You've been busy. You've been at the gym. I am so thrilled to hear you're out fishing and getting a line wet. What else have you been doing other than, of course, and I think we have to make mention of it, is the magazine's out?
Yeah, the magazine's out there. Everybody's got it. Getting all kinds of really good response to it. It was really nice. One of the posts that I did with it had like 45 shares of it.
Nice.
Really, really nice. And that's been cool. But the big thing this week for me, besides what we talked about, was tomorrow's after 28 months, I go to the pain clinic in Kingston tomorrow.
Wow.
The Kopi Pain Clinic.
Yeah.
It's like a famous place. In fact, they phoned me at 3:00 today to remind me that if I don't show up at 3:15 tomorrow, that there's a $150 charge, and I can't get back in the building until I pay it.
Well, let's hope you make it then.
I'll be there. If I have to call 911 and get them to drive me there.
There you go. So now, having Sean answer the question how close Moose was to getting a check, it bodes the question to you then, Jim. What was the closest you came without taking home money? Because Moose came within a half an ounce.
So like a 10th place check type thing, half an ounce?
I guess, yeah.
Yeah. I won a boat by 4 ounces, a Ranger boat.
Oof.
Yep. I won a Ranger boat by a kilo. It was exactly 2.2 pounds. When I won the boat in Quebec, I won it, I think, was by like 11 pounds. There was a lot of snarky people about that.
Yeah.
They had lots to say that, about the fish and everything else, but you had a scrutineer in the boat. You fished with an amateur, a non-boater, and all the fish came off the same rock pile.
Incredible. Wow.
Had current on it. They were 11 of the fish were smallmouths and one was a largemouth. And I don't know what the largemouth was doing there. It came off that pile of rocks, but it was 5 pounds. So that, I think it was almost 5 pounds or something like that, close to it. What else? The closest though, like to missing a check. We've had times where it's just like, like literally like an ounce or two. You'd miss out of the money. But Rocky and I fished the same way too. We never fished. Seldom would we fish for a check.
Yeah.
There was a couple of times in individual tournaments where I fished for a check because I had a family and I had no money. And I could have gone for it and tried to win, but it just, I had to take the safe thing, go out and catch 14 pounds. So I got a check for $700 or $800 $100 to go home and buy groceries and have half the rent money put away, stuff like that. So
Right.
it's a different thing. But we when Rocky and I fish together almost all the time, we fish to win, and that's why sometimes we'd come third, second, win, and then the week after we'd be 80th because we didn't, we knew there was something there, and in our estimation it shouldn't have changed. We just didn't happen to get them. It's that kind of thing. Hey, so but yeah, it was always the way I fished. I never fished to get a check. I didn't look at it that way. I fished to win, and that's why I won boats and trucks and lots of money and other stuff along the way with that. And I think you have to be like that. But when you're out fishing for fun, you don't even have to think about stuff like that.
So true.
There was a period on Saturday here with Jeff where we just sort of floated in the lake chatting.
Yeah, we've done that before. I remember a couple times you turned around going, "Are you going to fish?" I said, "No, are you kidding? The show just started." You got Jim and his I don't want to say. I was just about to say stripper pole, but power pole. And all that goes on with that. But needless to say, no, I totally understand. Sometimes just being out in the water is all it takes. That's all it takes.
But you know where my time like that comes from?
Yeah.
In the lawn chair.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I had a guy knock on the door here on Saturday. Just after I got back. He said he pulled in right behind me when we drove up. Jeff had to run, so he was gone. And he came, he saw me at the door here, and I was talking to him for a while and he says to me, "Do me a favor." I said, "What?" He said, "Do you mind if I run down back and get my wife to take a picture of me sitting in your chair?"
That's hilarious. Oh man. Wow.
I thought it was pretty cool.
By 1/10 of an ounce, 8 ounces. That's a tough pill to swallow. Well,
you damn salmon fisherman.
Before we let you go, I'm interested to see what you think a fish of this size weighs.
I think I posted. I went really low. I think I said 3.96 or something.
Yeah.
Because it's 20 inches long. It's not thick. And where the hand is over it, there's no belly.
Yeah.
Like if you saw that hand go out of there, if you look at that front fin, it almost looks like the belly's going up, not coming down. But it's a beautiful, healthy looking fish besides it doesn't have a belly. I mean, look, there's not a mark on it. It's absolutely incredible.
It is. And I would have thought, like Mark, who took the picture, that a fish of that size would have weighed a little bit more.
Well, 20 inches should be 5 pounds.
You would think.
You're awful close to it. You know what I mean?
Awful close to it. Yeah.
So, where was that fish caught?
That was at our OFC Nation retreat at Camp McIntosh.
Yes.
It was caught out in Georgian Bay, but it was within the trench of the French River that flows into Georgian Bay. So that, I would say, for the most part, is a river run fish. It could very well go out in the big water too, but based on, as Jim mentioned, not having a huge gut, to me, that is a fish that is constantly
It doesn't have it doesn't look like it has shoulders. It's hard to tell without looking up. But that fish doesn't look thick from side to side.
Yeah. So your guess, last chance would be how much? 3.96 pounds?
Yeah, just under 4. Maybe a good bit less.
You're close.
385, yeah.
You're close. You're very close.
Really?
Still got it. Well done, Jim. As always, dude, really appreciate your time and, of course, all your stories and, of course, the knowledge from yesteryear. Some things that we just don't need to forget. Names, unfortunately, we do from time to time, but when it comes to everything else, we really appreciate some of the stuff that you offer us. Because
it'll be a good week to finish up here. I got the guy comes Thursday to install that seat on the handrail deal for Tammy. You can get it because I'm terrified she's going to fall down the basement stairs. She's gone for a couple of flips in the last few weeks.
Yeah.
And one of them happens at the top of the stairs. Good God. So,
amen. Amen, brother.
That chair goes in there Thursday morning, and I'm sure her and all the grandkids will be up and down that thing more times than you can count.
Make sure you
It's gonna be like a circus.
get a phone number for the sake of repairing it. You get the repairman's phone number because you're going to need it, I think.
He fishes.
Well, that's a good thing.
When he
Jim,
was-
have yourself a great week. Good luck tomorrow, dude. All the best to you. Stay
Take
safe.
care, people. Be safe out there. Put your life jacket on. It's getting cold.
Amen. We got Lawrence Gunther coming up right after this.
When it comes to Canadian food, we've got your back with flavors like lemon pepper, beer batter, campfire barbecue, lemon pepper dill, garlic butter and chives, and crispy Cajun. We've got a mix for every meal. Whether you're serving East Coast shrimp, West Coast salmon, succulent walleye, chicken wings, or veggies, we've got you covered. Coat your food in outdoor flavors. Available online or at these fine retailers.
There he is, the one and only, the man, the myth, the legend, full of knowledge and know-how. Good buddy, Lawrence Gunther. How you doing, my friend?
And I have no connection to Narwhal, the beast, or the magazine, as implied by Big Jim. I have no idea where he gets this Narwhal thing from. I think he read my newsletter, and I always cite where I get my articles, and I shorten the name, so I often just mention Narwhal. Right?
Well, I'll tell you what, when you want to go ask the question, just make sure I'm not around. Just know it's Scotty. If you don't hear me say yep, then you know to ask the question, because I've heard it a million times myself. So,
I know. And I should have asked, but he always catches me off guard, but it's all good. It's all good. He's, I mean, I've known Big Jim for, oh my goodness, almost 20 years. And I actually met him back in the early 1980s when he still had his fishing tackle shop here in downtown Ottawa.
wow.
Yeah.
That goes back a few years. Wow.
Oh, yeah.
Interesting stuff. Well, needless to say, Lawrence, you bring, as you always do, some great news articles and news items. I was intrigued yet again, by our CFN community. I don't know if you had an opportunity to read. You did? Okay.
Oh, yeah.
Well, listen, this is Lawrence Gunther. He's from Bluefish Canada, has podcasts on Bluefish Radio. If you've missed any of his, immense catalog library, whatever you want to call it, a podcast of interesting folks that he spoke to, by all means, I invite you to go over to Bluefish Radio, or even ask Alexa, what is the latest on Bluefish Radio? And you will get not only this podcast, but many others that, as I mentioned, he has done. But I will say this, really interested to see your take on what was shared by CBC. I have heard this complaint before many times, but this one sort of really hit home, only because it was done by the CBC. It was done in the fashion that it was, and it really does take a swipe at the process, and I'll have you take it from there. But of course, this was a news item that was shared to us by many, Richard Dunlop, Sean Fortier, and a few others. Thanks so much for sending this to me. Walleye restocking for Golden Lake could be sunk by red tape. Group is worried volunteers accuse ministry of putting up every roadblock they can. Now, I'm going to ask you. I'm going to ask you to dive in from there. Listen, I think it's important before we go forward for folks to understand it is not easy to stock fish in any body of water. So
you've got more experience on that than a lot of people, Scotty. I mean, you've been stocking walleye, and privately and publicly for years.
It is not an easy process, and now that the transportation of water makes it even more difficult, probably puts up even more barriers. So going forward with, and I've seen it firsthand, even with some of the tournaments, the transportation of water is truly the biggest issue. But there are other historic issues that lead up to it as well. Is it a natural stock? Is it native to that body of water? So there's a lot of boxes that have to be ticked. So again, it sounds like this group has done all that. And I do sympathize. I empathize, because I've been there with the cottages associations. I've been there with conservation groups, hunting, and they had all of their ducks in a row, and at the last minute, they were thrown a curveball. But it is, unfortunately, a process. This, unfortunately, has taken a road that may see these folks give up. But again, Lawrence, I'll let you take it from there.
Yeah, Scotty, on the outside and the way it was reported, you would think this is just pure bureaucratic, incompetence. It's, the system not working, the government, usual timing. But there's more to this story that didn't really get reported. And I can give you an example, but before I get there, let's talk about the story a bit. So let's talk about Golden Lake. It's about 150 kilometers from Ottawa. It's near a community called Egan. So up sort of near the Highway 17, Trans-Canada up there, near Bancroft, kind of on the way to Bancroft. And it was a prized walleye fishery in the 1980s and 90s. You had a lot of cottage, kind of rental cottage fishing, equipment, people kind of setting up there. One guy, he said, their family has 14 cottages. They used to rent them all out continually through the walleye season. And they were fully booked the whole walleye season. So then you think, okay, well, what happened to the walleye population? This was a premier walleye fishery, obviously discovered in the 1980s. And we also know around the 1970s, that's a time when a lot of, people who love fishing started buying their own aluminum boats, right? They started buying aluminum boats that go on adventures. And this is reachable within a day's drive of Ottawa. So you have, local people, you have outside people, you have people who are paying to have that fishing experience, all sort of descending onto this lake. And by the end of the 1990s, the fishery had been fished out. So the Ministry of Natural Resources put an embargo on walleye fishing from 2002 to 2007, 5 years, no walleye fishing allowed on that lake. That's an incredible period of time. It never really bounced back. But there's a wild card in all this too, right? The wild card is rainbow smelt. And I'm not sure when those rainbow smelt were introduced into that lake, but apparently the rainbow smelt are much more aggressive than a walleye fry. So the rainbow smelt actually, preyed on the walleye fry. And before the walleye fry could grow up and become fingerlings and grow up and become, juvenile walleye and eat the rainbow smelt, they were eaten themselves. So, any effort to sort of rebuild the stock was questionable whether it would ever work because of the rainbow smelt population. Now, that Golden Lake is known for its rainbow smelt fishery, where people go and during this rainbow smelt spawn and catch, buckets of rainbow smelt. That's sort of dropped off in recent years for some reason, not sure why. I don't think anyone's tracking that. I don't know, but so you have this lake that has been transformed. It was a bit of it saw its economic power peak in the 1980s, 1990s with all these fishing outsiders coming and with their boats and their, money for cottages and hotels and such. And it, staying in restaurants, eating in restaurants and all that. And then it was demised, right? It fell apart. And so you have people who live there, you have people who have cottages there, and you have local experts. They formed a committee about 2 years ago that said, let's try to bring the walleye back. And someone introduced the idea of a floating fish pen that could be used to raise walleye fingerlings in the lake and then release those fingerlings once they got to a size that the rainbow smelt could no longer predate on them. So you think about this, big bathtub. I'm not sure how big these things are, these floating nets, these floating pens that they would put these very small walleye in. So it would be very fine mesh. And then they would be released at some point. But during the time they're in that pen, they would need to be moved about. They need to be, make sure the pen is kept clean and make sure the waste is taken out of the pen. Otherwise, the fish will die on their own filth. And food that passes by the fish, that doesn't get eaten and falls to the bottom of the net, that would have to be removed as well. So you'd have considerable amount of food and fish waste in these pens that would be decomposing, and that introduces some very things we don't like to hear about when we're talking about our freshwater lakes, and that's the element of blue-green algae. right? Nutrients. It's nutrients.
Mhm.
This is where the story takes a turn. So if it was just a matter of, growing the walleye on land in a hatchery, in a closed containment area, and then raising them to a certain size and then releasing them into the lake, that would be one thing. But that's not what these people are proposing. These people want to use these floating fish pens. Now, when I talk about a floating fish pen, what does that remind you of?
Yeah. East Coast, West Coast.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Aquaculture.
Well, yeah. And I would say not the most embraced form of aquaculture, as we have talked about at great length on this show.
Yeah.
The unfortunate demise of the structure on the floor of the ocean, as well as everything else it does with the migrating salmon. So yes, there are definitely limitations to what I would consider a successful pen project. Going forward with a walleye, I think the idea and the concept is something that I thought about a number of years ago, for the simple fact that, you have predators like rainbow smelt that a lot of people don't realize can literally decimate a hatch. They are voracious when it comes to walleye fry. They love walleye fry. If it could be their number one food source, it would be walleye fry. If it isn't, I'm sure in some lakes it is.
Well, So there's the problem, right? When can you release the fish? And no wonder the walleye population come back. But you have these pens, and the Ministry of Natural Resources. Now, this is where the proponents of the plan, the community, the residents, the cottage owners, and a couple scientists are saying, hey, this is red tape, unnecessary red tape. We're not a commercial operation. But they're saying, look, anything that involves a floating fish pen in a water body is a commercial operation by definition, and you need to apply appropriately. That application has to be accompanied with environmental assessments on potential damage that those pens can create in that water body. And those tests can cost, according to this article, between $50,000 and $90,000. The community has raised $11,000. They don't have the money to do the environmental tests that the ministry is asking for. Mm-hmm. So why are they asking for these tests? It's because that's what the policy says, that's what the rule says, and we can't make exceptions because the policy says there's no exceptions. Is it just a black and white interpretation by some bureaucrat? That's the inference. That's the inference being made by these officials. They've got the local member of parliament on their side. They've got the Minister of Natural Resources on their side, but even the minister says, I can't change the rules. I can't just go around the rules. So we're helping them fill out their application. But like I said, to submit an application for a commercial pen fishery, grow out operation comes with an environmental assessment that they don't want to pay for, that they can't pay for. So why is the ministry? And I'll tell you why. I have an example of this. This isn't the first time, Scotty, that something like this has been tried in a freshwater lake. Yeah. So you've seen what happens, right? When you have an open pen fish grow out operation on a fresh lake, and there's a community about 100 kilometers east of Ottawa in the Gatineaus called Lac Henny. Some people know it as Whitefish Lake. This is one of the 4 gems in the Gatineau area. The 4 beautiful lakes. We are 31 Mile, Blue Sea, Lac Ste. Marie, and Lac Henny. And what happened is Lac Henny applied to put a fish grow operation for rainbow trout on Lac Henny. The government of Quebec granted the license. The fish operation started. By the second year, the water had gone from relatively clear to very, very cloudy, and algae was growing. And the cottagers went irate. The property owners went irate because now their property, their cottages, their ability to enjoy the lake, their fear of the blue-green algae, because you never know if it's going to be the toxic kind of blue-green algae or not. It just ruined their whole cottage experience. So the Cottage Association sues the operators of the hatchery and sues the government for issuing the license. What do you think happened next? the operators say, hey, we are operating within the rules. We have a permit. They sue the government for making them take their nets out of the lake. So now the government has to compensate the hatchery program for the grow out operation for their losses and transferring their base of operation to another body of water. And they have to pay the Cottage Association a large fine, and they're responsible for paying to rehabilitate the lake. So hundreds of thousands of dollars, coming out of the government to take care of all these issues. Who knows how much went to the company? That was never told, never revealed. But the Cottage Association got hundreds of thousands of dollars to rehabilitate their lake. They did it by spreading iron dust on the surface of the lake, with the idea that the iron dust would push down through the water column and push the excess nutrients to the bottom of the lake and pin it down on the bottom of the lake. They tried it once. They had a marginal success. They tried it again 6 months later. They had more success, but the water quality has never been fully restored, but it is livable again. It is tolerable again, but it's never been fully restored. So there you go. There is a clear case of a government that thought they were doing the right thing, issuing this license. No, there weren't proper studies conducted, and because there weren't proper studies conducted, that they could say, "Hey, we were told this is safe," and they just issued the permits without the studies. Then they were left holding the bag, and that's what this Ontario government's trying to avoid. If they just issue this permit, and the people who want the permit, who want to be able to do this, say, well, give us just a science permit. Just let us try it. And if it doesn't work out, we'll stop doing it. Well, if it doesn't work out, who's going to clean up the mess? And who's paying for that?
100%. 100%. See, this is why we look into these kind of topics, and we have you dissect them like you do, because there are certain things that need to be said, and there's certain things that need to be shared. In order for folks like myself, or anybody for that matter, to understand how we got to this point. And what Lawrence has done is paint a very good picture on what has happened to lead up to this, and some of the roads that the government does not want to go back down for obvious reasons. But at the end of the day, I think it's more important that a situation, or even an initiative like this, try not hitting it out of the park with the first swing.
I hear you.
You know what I'm saying? Like, at the end of the day, there's a natural balance. This lake was able to sustain and feed a certain amount of walleye fry. They kept it the walleye fishery that it was known for. So we know that there was a balance. What I think needs to be done is, if we can get research to understand how many possible reproducing walleye there were in that lake, another estimate on how many fry they would have produced, given certain elements and situations that would arise during spawning or after spawning that would kill the eggs, shorten the length of incubation. There's a whole bunch of things that you can talk about. But at the end of the day, there is a balance. And whether we hit it bang on or we get close, this is what we need as managers of fisheries to understand, is getting as close to that balance as we can. The unfortunate thing is our hands are tied because of the native issue. And I'm not talking to First Nations. I'm talking about whether the fish is native to that body of water. In Golden Lake, it has been well known that walleye have done very, very well. And it's interesting that this topic came up, because Golden Lake was one of the first lakes that I was able to research and identify that one of the attributing factors to their demise was not necessarily overfishing. It certainly attributed to it, but it was actually the introduction of the rainbow smelt. They did such a huge swath of damage to fry that, unfortunately, the fishery just couldn't catch up based on the take. Should things have been done, leading up to that? Yeah, probably. Should we have been a little bit more policing when it came to how those rainbow smelt got into the body of water? Yeah, likely. But this is where all of these rules, regulations, zones, and rules that we have to follow have come from, because we have, at least I'd like to think, we've learned from our mistakes.
Yeah. I agree,
but
Scotty. I agree. We're learning from our mistakes. You know, it's no longer the Wild West where we just say, "Oh, okay, something's going wrong here. Let's try this." Boom, and then something else goes wrong, and try this. Boom, and you know, and it's just a series of problem after problem after problem. And we all know, you know, how that goes. You know, you have rabbits introduced into, you know, Australia where they've never had rabbits before. Now they have more rabbits than they know what to do with. You know, things like that, right? We hear about stories like this, so we got to be a little more careful. And when we're looking at people who are, you know, their economic interests, their personal interests, you know, they want to have things the way it was. They want to have lots of tourists coming back, lots of all that money coming back into their community. They want to have a great fishery again. You understand their motivation. It's all excellent motivation for sure. Yeah, they even got the nearby First Nations community, you know, on their side, right? So it's just a matter of how do we do this? How do we get there? You know, because even if you introduce walleye back into that lake, there's, you know, you still have the rainbow smelt to deal with. So even if the walleye start to spawn, you introduce them, they grow up, they start to spawn, the rainbows are always going to be there. The rainbow smelt are always going to be there to eat their fry, you know, unless the walleye can lay such a good beating on them that beats them right back almost out of existence. Is that possible, Scotty? I mean, do you think the walleye could ever push the smelt population? Because if the walleye did really get, you know, to be a good fishery again, there would be people there fishing again, and there'd be the fishing pressure again. So maybe that would, you know, reduce the walleye population, and then the smelt population would recover. So you'd always have to probably have a constant hatchery program year after year after year to reintroduce, fingerling size walleye back into the lake. Now we know, you know, last year was the hottest year on record. This year was a pretty good year for heat as well. Maybe not everywhere, but certainly look at most of the United States and look at what we've just experienced in September and October. You know, it's been a very warm September and October here in Ottawa and north of Ottawa, unusually warm. And every time the lake stays warmer longer, it takes less and less nutrients to create problematic blue-green algae, which means you have to be more and more vigilant on, you know, making sure you don't get that blue-green algae into the lake. You know, Lake Erie is a prime example of that. They cleaned up the blue-green algae problem from the 1980s that killed that lake, and they had everything under control. And now the lake is warmer and it's staying warmer longer. So even though there's less nutrients in that lake than there was in the 1980s, the blue-green algae problem is back worse than ever.
Yes, and there's a lot to unpack there. And you know, when I stare into the mirror, or like when my old man used to tell me, "Know your place," you know, surrounded by the folks like Jason Barnucz and George Morgan, I'm not going to speak as if I am as educated as them. Because they have the credentials and the time in the classroom to justify, not to mention the field work that they do. So they know a little bit more than I, but based on what I have learned, based on what I have seen, to answer your question, could the walleye keep the rainbow smelt population in check? 110%.
Nice.
The problem is there's a lot of variables too that a lot of folks don't acknowledge, or even they forget about. That has also created or has also not helped with the decline of the walleye in Golden Lake. One of the big things that we talk about when we're talking about the Kawarthas and the walleye population, how fragile it is in the Kawarthas, a lot of it has to do with water levels, especially during spawn. We talk about that. Jay and I have talked about that as well. But another thing that we seem to forget, but it should be more prevalent in our mindset, and it's probably because a lot of folks just don't know. But when walleye fry first hatch, for almost 10 days, up to 2 weeks, depending on water temperature and their growth, they are in the first foot of the water column.
Wow.
What else is in the first foot of the water column? Boats. We have never seen boat traffic like we have now. We never saw it back then, not like we see it now. You know, you got folks that are out on jet skis, you got folks that are, whatever, but they got trolling motors, they've got gas-powered engines, even some of the electric. But needless to say, you've got a churning prop in that first foot of the water column. And unfortunately, fry don't stand up well to that stuff.
Wow.
So not only are they being eaten by our rainbow smelt, perhaps their stocks are being fished to a point of not being able to sustain itself, but you've got all these other variables at play too. So I want to touch on a comment that was made by Ian McLaughlin. And I think this is truly, if I had my way, Ian and Lawrence, or anybody who's listening, if I had my way, this is exactly how we would manage our bodies of water. You would only be able to raise the stock of which the species exists naturally in that body of water. I fully understand the reintroduction of a fish species is difficult because you've lost that native strain. But if you have a reproducing strain of, let's say, walleye in Golden Lake, what I would have loved to have seen, and what I pushed back then with the Fish and Wildlife Advisory Board, is let's get a hatchery. And I do believe they did have a hatchery. And I don't know how many years it ran before they finally pulled the plug. And I think it was not long after they closed fishing for walleye. But they did have a walleye hatchery. And unfortunately, it just wasn't able to keep up. It wasn't able to do its thing. But I truly believe, especially Golden Lake, because a lot of folks don't know how shallow it is, it would not take a lot to bring that fishery back because of the basically the scenario that you're dealing with when in terms of that water body. Lake Erie is a perfect example. Look how quickly walleye came back in Lake Erie.
Incredible.
The lake was completely dead. Golden Lake is a small version of that. So it's not out of the realm of possibility, but unfortunately, without a reproducing natural species or DNA strain of walleye within that body of water, it's very, very difficult for the MNR to give the green light to say it's okay to stock. So, Ian, why not raise fry in outside hatcheries? Is the goal to stock fish every year if there can be no natural reproduction? It truly is the goal, Ian. At the end of the day, the whole idea of hatcheries is either to help along natural recruitment or to, make it better.
A put and take fishery, right? You can do either way. You can create a put and take fishery with a hatchery where you know you're going to be, planting the seeds every year, and someone else is going to harvest. And that's what we thought we were doing with the Pacific salmon in the Great Lakes, right? We thought that would be a put and take fishery forever. Turns out, more than half the fish there are now breeding successfully.
And that would be, I would say, the goal of any hatchery that is ever built on the side of any shoreline, river, body of water. That would be the goal, is that you wouldn't necessarily want the hatchery to continue for years to come.
Yeah.
There's an exit plan, and the idea is once you get that natural recruitment, that natural reproduction, that's when you close the door on the hatchery. You don't need to, because there's that balance. We talk about it. Once you meet that balance, a lake can only produce so much. And if you start adding...
I think MNRF made that decision 5-10 years ago, that they said, walleye in southern Ontario is unnatural. There's way too much competitive pressure for walleye, which aren't very competitive fish by nature. But normally, if you look at northern Ontario where walleye grow naturally, their main competition is pike and suckers, right? There's not a lot of competition. They don't have the perch and the sunfish and the bluegills and the bass and all the rest of it. So you bring them down south where all the people live because they want to eat walleye. You're introducing a very delicate fish in some senses to a very competitive environment, and therefore you have to keep doing the hatcheries. And they said, we got to get out of this because we're spending so much money putting fish into lakes that probably don't belong there because they can't, naturalize. They can't habituate. They can't become part of the infrastructure, the aquatic ecosystem, and just live there. So they decided, we're going to give it a few more years, and then if it doesn't take, it doesn't take. And then they just leave it. They said, it didn't work. It didn't work. We're not going to keep throwing good money after bad. And that's what MNRF started doing with their walleye hatcheries throughout southern Ontario, not throwing good money after bad. Either you get it established and you run it properly, you manage it properly, you don't overfish it, but if things happen, but they can't just keep going back and trying over and over and over again every year for the rest of our lives and all our children's and grandchildren's lives.
Yeah. Well, and Jeremy is asking, walleye are unnatural, but does the Great Lakes supply most restaurants with pickerel walleye for them? Yeah, at the end of the day, yes. The good majority of our walleye do come from our larger lakes, Great Lakes. Let's face it, Lake Erie does supply an incredible amount of food for North America, and perhaps maybe abroad. I'm not sure how much of it gets exported, but needless to say, Lake Winnipeg, there's a few walleye, pickerel, whatever you want to call it, factories out there that are producing a lot of walleye. But to get back to the whole idea of stocking, first understanding the need for stocking is really important. And I think a lot of folks just say, well, the walleye aren't what they used to be. So this is why you have creel samples and what have it. It is a process. At the end of the day, it's a process. Is it a frustrating one? Yes, it's just as frustrating it is for us as I'm sure it is for the MNR, because every time that there is something that stalls them or prolongs the process, they got to hear about it from us. So let's be honest. It can't be fun to constantly get very very little action, or at least forward movement on an initiative, because of all of the stuff that has to be done behind the scenes. But again, I digress. This is a topic that I could talk about at great length, because I see both sides and I've been a part of it, and it can be a very frustrating process. But at the end of the day, I think we need to start looking at keeping things centralized. Let's not look at hatcheries to stock many lakes. Let's just think about micro hatcheries stocking the lake in which it's on the shore of. I think if we get back to that, I think we might be onto something.
Now, they say that the proponents of this plan for Golden Lake say that the pens that they want to use for growing out these fish fry to fingerling size, they would be cleaned, the fish waste, feces would be collected, the uneaten fish food would be gathered, none of it would be released into the actual ecosystem itself, and therefore there should be no problem. But I don't know. I don't know anything about these types of, fingerling fry pens and floating pens. And so, I think, is there science? Do we just don't know the science? Do we have to do the science? Where would we do the science? And maybe this is something for the experimental lakes. I'm going to be talking to some scientists up there. That this is the experimental lakes up in northwestern Ontario, in the middle of nowhere, where no one hardly ever goes. And I don't know how many lakes they have where they conduct really cool science that we all benefit from, away from, us, away from people that could screw up their experiments, right? They're out in the middle of nowhere, but they've been doing this for a while. They lost their funding and then they got it back. Anyways, I'm super curious to find out, because if that's where we can do some science too, and start to resolve some of these problems and say, look, we need to make sure the science is really useful to the people like these Golden Lake residents, right? Maybe they would really benefit from some good science where they could say, look, here's the research, here's the studies where it's shown that these systems work.
Yeah, 100%. You're 100% right. Corey, portable fish hatcheries were something that were used back in the day. I know I was in the midst of building one myself out of an old trailer. I have worked in many walleye hatcheries that were actually built out of a small trailer, camper trailer. But unfortunately, these are they might be the way to go, as I had suggested, that if we're going to do it on a lake specific situation, then yes. But to move these portable hatcheries around, I don't see that as beneficial. And the reason I say that is exactly why, for the reason what George says. You might as well be talking about politics or the election instead of trying to produce a walleye fishery in Southern Ontario. And nobody can speak about it better than George.
Oh, he's in the middle of it. He's in the
middle of it, and he sees it as I do. You might as well not even talk about it. I might as well just turn and talk to the wall. It is so difficult, and I understand why. It doesn't necessarily mean I agree with it, but I have to respect it because let's face it, I am not a scientist. I'm not a biologist. So I have to concede to those who are.
But look at Scotty Industries, Scotty Molding, the guys who make all their downriggers and tracks and rod holders and stuff out in Vancouver, out in British Columbia. For years, they handed out to schools, classrooms, aquariums, pumps, filters, and everything they needed to hatch and grow salmon fry out from eggs, right? Mm-hmm. And hundreds and hundreds of classrooms did this. They got their aquarium, they got their eggs, they fertilized the eggs, they hatched the eggs, they grew them out, and then they released them into their nearby watersheds, right? And their lakes, and to support the salmon population. Now, what salmon were going where and where were the salmon coming from? And it was just a big confusion of salmon DNA. Who knows? Scotty's, molding isn't doing this anymore. And there's all sorts of science and people saying, you can't just mishmash, fling it around and not. No, it's what Ian was saying. If you got to work with the DNA from that body of water and just take the fish from that body of water and help them recover and then put them back, but not, fling them around. But I think if they could do that, though, if we could get schools to take this on and take a project like that on, maybe many hands make light work, right? I don't know.
Well, I guess that brings me to my next concern is who's going to run these hatcheries. That's my biggest concern. At the end of the day, it can be a lot of work. It doesn't necessarily have to be if you set it up properly, but if you are unfortunately at the mercy of what you're provided, sometimes running a hatchery is not easy. Water quality being your biggest problem. That is your biggest concern is water quality. If you have fluctuations in temperature, then you're going to have issues. You're going to have all kinds of issues. But needless to say, who's going to run these hatcheries?
Yeah, there's a group on the St. Lawrence River on the south side, on the American side, across from Cornwall, and they've been doing the walleye hatchery there for 20, 30 years, and they're all retiring out. They're saying, look, we're too old. We don't want to do this anymore. We're not capable of doing it anymore. We're all getting old. We need fresh hands, and without fresh hands stepping forward, they've had to, say, look, we'll just have to shut it down. Now, there was some money raised to help them get through the year. That was a couple of years ago, but I don't know what's happened since. I'm not sure if the First Nations stepped in to take it over. I think there was some talk about that. But it's, people volunteering, right? Someone told me the other day that people over 75 volunteer, people under 55 volunteer, but the ones between 55 and 75, i.e. the baby boomers and so on, aren't big on volunteering. And that's a real problem. That's a real problem because normally, you come through your career, you think, okay, I've gone as high as I'm going to go. I don't need to work all those extra hours. Maybe I need to look at some other ways of making my life interesting besides just being a careerist, and you start volunteering. That didn't happen with the baby boomers, and you see it everywhere. These organizations are suffering.
Yes. Listen, we've talked a lot about this topic, so I don't want to, Rob, there has been some great comments made by a number of people that have recognized a lot of great hatchery work that's being done out there. And of course, we're never going to make everybody happy. As George has mentioned, you're 100% right. At the end of the day, it's a lengthy process. It's cumbersome if you want change and immediate change. It tests your patience. But yeah, at the end of the day, I think it's understandable that there's frustration in regards to this article from both sides. But at the end of the day, I guess we will wait and see what happens. But thanks so much again to everybody who shared it to me, and Lawrence, for you actually taking the time to read and get knowledge of it. Are there any other topics of information or news or must knows that you want to share with us?
It's a busy next 5-6 weeks. I'll tell you, it's been a busy few months already with just so many meetings around community science here, what they call citizen science is now called community science. And it's all about, can anglers and other groups get involved with collecting data, quality data around water quality, so we can start to track what's happening out there. Right? We see these record temperatures and this and that happening, and wouldn't it be nice if we had some real solid records of our favorite water bodies going back over time? The Federation of Ontario Cottage Association, they've been collecting data for over 40 years by a bunch of different lake associations and submitting that water quality samples in for official testing. But it's not too late. And there's organizations that are starting this up. Bluefish Canada wants to get involved with us. We're getting dragged to all these meetings. And another one next week, hosted by Environment Climate Change Canada, bringing a bunch of community groups together. This week, we're at the St. Lawrence River Institute for Environmental Science. We'll be talking about our community science project there at their annual symposium. And on, my friend, on and on.
Interesting. Well, Lawrence, we look forward to all of it that you bring to us. As I said, I think it's really important that we understand the facts, and I do appreciate you bringing forth what you do, because at the end of the day, whether you agree with it or not, it is a version of what is happening. And I know Lawrence does his homework, so a lot of the facts that are shared within the story itself are good takeaways. So you may not get the message of the story, but there's a lot of the ingredients that you're going to enjoy. So make sure you listen in.
Hey, buddy. Always a pleasure knocking these things around with you, my friend.
It is, dude. I am very passionate about topics like this, as you can well imagine. And I do have some strong opinions in regards to how we can fix it, how we can better it, not necessarily fix it, but just better it. But I do appreciate those who have open ears and take the time to listen, because I think that's another thing that we're starting to lose is the ability to listen to one another.
Mm-hmm.
Anyway, Lawrence,
yep.
On that note, thanks for doing your part to allow us to listen to some news, facts, and must-knows and 411, and we look forward to seeing you next Monday, dude.
Thank you, my friend. Have a great week, and we'll talk to you in a week.
Can't wait. Cannot wait. Jay Barnucz coming up right after a word from his sponsor.
The fear of failure is failure itself. The world of science rewards the ones who are willing to try and fail. Because without the courage to embrace failure, ideas remain ideas. But with that courage to fail and to learn, ideas can change the world.
Yes, they certainly can. Jay, with that note, I'm going to we'll do this at the end of your segment, but I am interested to hear your take on this fish. I think Jim's his synopsis, I think, was bang on. Like there's a guy that spent most of his life, if not all of it, chasing these fish, and man, does he ever know? Because he is literally bang on. But I'd love to hear your take. Do you think that fish is over 5 pounds?
No, it's a skinny fish. Like since I've been taking up kayak fishing with Trevor, we have measured, like I have a new appreciation for the proportions of fish, because I have caught some really heavy 19 inchers and I've caught some really light 20 inchers. Like strikingly different, like up to 1 pound to 2 pounds difference. Like it's amazing, because with kayak angling, it's all based on length, not weight. Whereas with boat tournaments, it's based on weight. And there's some huge differences out there. And I've started to take stock in, like, what do you think this fish weighs? And so Trevor and I, so we have a scale that we trust, and I've used it a long time. It's usually in his kayak. He uses it more than I do, but like we like to weigh our fish once in a while, especially our bigger ones, just to see how they compare. So
100%. Obviously a topic that Lawrence and I just discussed that I was a little hesitant getting you to weigh in on, just because of the innuendos that it had tied to it. But at the end of the day, it's a topic that won't go away. I know we've talked about it, you and I, Jay, and a lot of people have all the answers, and I understand people's frustration when it comes to the process. Been through it, been there, got the t-shirt. At the end of the day, everybody has to understand it is a process, and as much as you want to rectify it immediately, and it's a great idea and everybody's excited, you do have to temper that excitement because it doesn't happen overnight. Regardless of whether you get the green light to do it or not, it does not happen.
Yeah, and I think people, I listening to some of the or reading a lot of the comments in the chat, like you can throw as much money as you want at stuff when it comes to like hatcheries. Sometimes the habitat and the conditions have changed so much over 30, 40, 50 years that you're literally just throwing money away now. Like we could talk about zebra mussels, phosphorus, like, you know, global warming, whatever we want to talk about, things have changed. And for some fish, they benefit, and for some fish, they don't. And we don't have the ability to change. We can stock as much as we want. It ain't going to happen. That's what's hard. That's the tough pill to swallow in this sort of fisheries management realm we're kind of dabbling in here, right?
And it's not a perfect science. Like, to your point, you know, I mean, if you've got rainbow smelt in that system and you just dump a whole bunch of walleye fry, all you're really doing is increasing the population of rainbow smelt. Yes, you might have some effect on the population of the walleye, but it's going to be so small. Yeah, because for those little fry to get past those rainbow smelt is almost impossible. So
yeah, like even if you read into this is a bass monitor, this is a bass stocking strategy, but in the U.S., I have a couple of colleagues who make a living on managing ponds for trophy bass, and it's for, you know, wealthier landowners who want to catch trophy bass on their property, and they have a pond that's several acres in size, and every few years to maintain the trophy size in these ponds, because they're so small, it's hard to develop the proper ecosystem, right? So what happens is that every, you know, probably every decade or so, and they monitor the ponds, they kill the entire pond and start over, because the purpose is to create giant bass. And once things start to get out of hand, like they'll start with hybrids, F1s, which is a Florida northern hybrid, and they get hybrid vigor and they grow very fast. But then you have to add some bait. You have to add some bluegill, or actually, they hate adding crappie. Crappie are really hard on bass. Crappie are incredible predators, okay? And so you're trying to create artificially an ecosystem that didn't exist because it's a dug pond, right? And then what happens is that over time, your bass get stunted. They're not as big as you wanted. And the only way to fix it, you can throw things at it. You can throw phosphorus in there. You can add chemicals to reduce the phosphorus. You can add more prey fish, take prey fish out. But sometimes you just have to start over. And in these lakes we're talking about in Ontario, and you know, and most of and it's natural lakes. These are natural lake systems, right? Outside of, if you have to basically draw a line, so from like Lake Scugog north, like the Oak Ridges Moraine north is basically natural lakes. That's what you have. Like, you have the Trent Severn waterway, so maybe those are artificial lakes, truly. Walleye moved in, crappie moved in. But you get up into the Shield above the Kawarthas, those are natural lakes. A lot of the lakes in the Muskokas. Down where I am, there's no natural lakes down here. All the lakes are reservoirs. There's a few small kettle lakes that are glacial lakes that have been left behind, but they're tiny. All of it's rivers. And just so folks know, like, walleye have an incredible distribution across North America. They have a wider distribution than smallmouth bass, like, which
is hard to believe.
It's huge. Like, it goes the entire Great Lakes Basin out to the St. Lawrence River, right? And then you have the entire Mississippi River, and then you have like up into the Arctic drainage, and then you have out into the prairies, all native. The only place they're not native is when you get into those Rocky Mountain rivers where they've been introduced, like the Columbia, and those places, and some of the East Coast drainages that flow up to the Atlantic. But the Great Lakes drainages and the Mississippi drainage, which is over half of North America, they're native. They may not be abundant as they are like in Lake Erie, but they have an incredible range. And George hit it on the head, I think. They just taste so darn good. And a lot of these places where they've declined is because they're too close to civilization. So they've either been eaten or the water quality has dropped off. All the rivers in southern Ontario, the Grand River, the Thames River, the Maitland, the Saugeen, all these huge systems all have and still have walleye, but it's the dams that have done the damage, right?
Yep.
Dams are great for some species. Smallmouth bass, for example, it creates reservoirs. It creates places for them to feed. They are riverine population of the smallmouth, but they do fine with dams because dams hold the water back and create habitat for them. But
in the day when I didn't really understand things, Jay, and I really appreciate you pointing that out. And I'll say this, it's safe for me to say it, but I was almost one of those guys that would say, okay, listen, we've got all kinds of rainbow running up these rivers. We've got all kinds of rainbow in Lake Ontario. All these tributaries are full of salmon and trout now. Can we maybe flip the script this year and start producing some walleye?
Yeah.
And I was looked at like I had 6 heads back in the day, but it's like, listen, why so much trout? Why so much salmon? If everybody loves walleye, why aren't we dumping more of these in the body of water? Now that I'm a little older, a little wiser, a little knowledgeable to how everything works, I can answer that a little bit better than I could back when I was in my 20s.
Yeah, and when we try and assess these situations, George's point just now. So anglers perceive abundance by their catch rate.
Yeah,
anglers are terrible at catching fish. I'm awful. You're awful. Big Jim's awful. Sorry, Jim, but we're terrible at it. We are because we aren't out there enough. We aren't out there all the time. We're not out there under all conditions. In fact, there's so much bias in fishing because I was using this bait. George was using that bait. Scotty, you use this bait. Oh, it's all bias. It's not standard. It's not done in a standardized way. And even using standardized methods, the sampling effort required to describe the fish community is incredible. And I think the ministry, through their broad scale monitoring in the past decade or more, has done a pretty good job for inland lakes. But even then, there's still, we know this, there's margin for error around all these things. And sometimes we get it right and sometimes we miss.
Yeah.
But
and sometimes there's still lots of work to be done. It's just, at the end of the day, we task the MNR and all of the individuals that they contract out, like yourself, to help better the fishery. But there's only so much that can be done.
Yeah, and it's true. Even if we stop fishing in some places, the habitat doesn't even exist there to allow those fish to survive. And if I don't know if a lot of folks realize this, but it costs a lot of money to raise fish. Fish are expensive, man. I remember you and I a couple years ago, we did the math on what it would take to stock Scugog so that it was functional, so many fish of a certain size per acre.
Yep. And
it was something like hundreds of millions of dollars. And there's not even a guarantee those fish would take.
100%.
That's sad to think about that, but that's why we have to protect these fisheries and protect the habitat before it gets too far gone. Because once you get too far gone, it's so hard to come back, man.
And Golden Lake is a perfect example of that. And I think that's what Golden Lake represents, is unfortunately it has just gone too far for us to do a quick fix or even a long-term fix. But needless to say, there are things that can be done. And I hope for the sake of those involved, they get what they're hoping for. And the process ends and they actually start putting fish back in the system. But I don't know. I have my doubts that kind of stuff is going to happen. Now we flogged that horse. You and I have talked about that at great length, but I appreciate you weighing in like you did. And George, I appreciated your comments as well as everybody else.
Yeah.
It's that kind of interaction when we talk about, controversial issues like that I really appreciate folks understanding that we can only go so far with our beliefs, because if this was not live, yes, we would be having a different conversation. But at the end of the day, we have to understand that there is a process and we have to respect it. Whether we agree with it or not, we have to respect it. So on that point, speaking of respect, I saw a video today, and it was a typical Monday for me. I don't know what it was like for everybody else, but it was a typical Monday for me. And I guess I was a little punchy. I don't know. Maybe I was just being very critical. There was a lot of stuff that happened first thing this morning that maybe got me off my game. But I looked at this video, and outside of just receiving it for what it was, which was, someone caught a really big muskie, there were so many things that I pointed out during the video that I'd like to share, Jay, with you, as well as the audience. Because there's some good takeaways here, and I'm doing this for the sake of bettering everybody's fishing experience. So, with that said, have a watch of this video, and don't mind me if I'm shaking my head in the background.
Or you? I don't know. Me? There we go. Just lace one right here. That'd be a mess, wouldn't it?
Oh, it'd be a shit show. Fuck! Speak of the devil!
Get the net, Spence! Get the net!
Take that!
Get the net! Just throw it down!
Get it out of the net!
Hurry up! Just net him! Net him!
Speak of it and then
Hurry up, Spence!
I'm trying to get the
He's gonna get off! Come on! Fuck it! Just put it down!
Pardon the language.
Put it down!
There.
Hurry up! Right now, Spencer! Right now! Oh my God! Right now, Spencer!
I'm going.
Just put it down. Put it down. Put it down. Oh!
Okay.
I'm going to tell you this, Scotty. I've seen this video before you showed it to me. I watched this
no
video
way.
a few days ago. Yeah. First thing I said to Trevor when I saw this video was, I'm like, and this is before the fish hit, why is he casting over or under the other guy's rod? Like right away, I lost my mind. I like this angry dad. If anyone's ever seen the Simpsons episode of Angry Dad, where Bart creates the Angry Dad cartoon character, which is Homer. I was Angry Dad. I'm like, no one should be casting over my line or under my line, or how. I don't even know how they got their lines crossed. And then of course he gets a fish on. And then Spencer doesn't, like, just net the fish, dude. Just I don't care your reel's caught in the net. And they should have had a better net. But anyways, that whole video stressed me out, man. That whole thing. So thanks a lot, Scotty. Just kidding.
Dude, I watched it and I got angry because I'm like, first of all, you have just ruined an opportunity, a great opportunity. I'm so glad they high-fived at the end of it, because I think if there were other people in that boat, it would have gotten ugly. But to your point, yes, never put yourself in a situation, especially when you're throwing baits like that and you know you're going to catch a big fish. Why are your lines so close? Like,
it's unbelievable, man.
And on top of that, and Spencer, my hat goes off to you. You're doing your best to try and get the reel untangled from the net. How it got tangled in the first place, I have no idea. But yeah, I'm like, this is not what to do if you want to have an enjoyable fishing experience. Because at the end of that, look at how you reacted. It was no different than me. I was angry after seeing that video.
Dude, I'll be honest, like all my years of fishing, if I have a net, if I'm going to use a net, which I usually do, I keep it like ready at the helm, like ready. So if it's on my kayak now, I have it set up so that it's like on a quick strike rig. Like I have it on the front of the kayak. I actually have a paddle holder that's a clamp. So like you put your paddle in it, so the net goes in it. And I use this. It's a beautiful Fabrel conservation net. So it's long, has a big bucket on it. Like I can, on my end of my crankbait rod, which is like 7.5 feet, I can scoop a bass. Now, if it's a largie and I'm fishing shallow water, I'm usually craning those fish and catching them in my chest. Like that's usually how I do it. But if I'm smallie fishing, I have that net like nothing. It doesn't get tangled on anything. I have it ready. I take time. If we move fishing spots, dude, if you and I were in the boat together, I would have that net like, okay, it's going to be here if we need it. And the fact, it was like my fishing OCD in that video was just off the chart. Like
I likewise, and I don't even have the OCD to blame, but I'm
like, I don't really know who's at fault here. Like
good point. Who is at fault?
Like Spencer's buddy cast it over Spencer's line. If you watch it from the very beginning, so it's not so much Spencer's fault, but anyways, yeah, you could. There's a lot of things happening in this video that really, really got me stressed out. Fishing is not supposed to be stressful, but holy moly!
And I'll be honest with you, I would have loved to have seen the result be that they lost the fish, and for no other reason that it taught them a lesson. Yeah. Don't do this again.
Like, dude, even their oars are not even along the side of the boat, just out of the way. Like everything, man, everything.
Yeah. Again, it's easy to be critical. It's easy to criticize. The reason I shared this video was not to point out the specific do's and don'ts, but at the end of the day, if you're not going to have a good time, that's not enjoyable. Being yelled at to net a fish that you're not prepared to net, there's no fun there. So if there's a message that I want, a takeaway that I'd like you guys to take away, and I know everybody listening is not that person, this is how you make it unfun for someone. This is how, after you're done the day of fishing, you never want to fish with that person, or perhaps maybe you never want to fish again. This is how quickly it can be ruined. So, rant over.
Well, I'm going to share a picture with you, Scotty, since I'm on here tonight. So
I am so glad you're sharing this video. So glad. But let you go. I don't want to interrupt.
No. So is it up there? I can't even see
it. It is. I don't want to show it just yet because I think there's a backstory.
So I'm going to give everyone a backstory. So I don't know the whole story, but I'm sitting at home on, I want to say it was Friday night or Saturday night, late at night. And I get a text from Mark Penner from Grimsby Tackle, Jeff's dad. And he sends me this picture of this fish. And I'm like, holy crap. But I know Mark's not a musky guy, so I want to hear the story. There's got to be a story behind this fish. Well, Mark is good friends with Shane Toombs from Fantastic Charters. And we've had Shane on CFN before. Shane's a great guy, great charter captain. So Mark was out with Shane, who they're buddies, and they're out by Port Maitland, and they're trolling or chucking husky jerks for walleye. And this is what Mark gets. He gets this. It was 50 1/4 inches by 24 inches. Now, there's also part of this story that you don't even know about. This is actually top secret information that I will share tonight on CFN. Everyone's going to miss out on this. Would you notice the hat that Mark has on?
I believe that's a raw fish, is it not?
That is a raw fish hat.
Yeah.
At the high school qualifier on day one, Mark lost his Abu Garcia hat going down the lake. Mark was Trevor and Jeff's captain. Trevor said, "Coach, I got a new hat for you, and it's red, just like your Abu hat." Mark wore that hat when Jeff caught his 6-pound smallmouth on day 2. That's Mark's new lucky hat. And look at the hat he's wearing. And in his text, he said, the hat is still lucky. So there you go. So Trevor's donated this hat to Mark. Trevor will never have this hat back. Mark surely is keeping this hat. So what a fish. And the spotted muskies, I think, are just the coolest looking color pattern too. So
And to go one step further, Jay, because it's this time of year that I expect, secretly, mind you, that a lot of big fish are going to get caught, especially at nighttime. Because if you notice the moon in the back, it has been that moon we all talk about.
Yeah, the hunter moon has been
hunter moon, the harvest moon. It's got 3 or 4 different names, but at the end of the day, it's one big spotlight in the sky. And I was waiting for somebody to pull in a massive salmon or some massive walleye, perhaps on Niagara River. But I'm not the least bit surprised that one of these big girls was caught. And look at the gut on that thing. Oh,
it's huge fish and walleye fishing nonetheless, right? So
yeah, 100%.
I'm gonna share another one here that I got. So this is, and Jim mentioned this in his segment. So this is from this past weekend. This is the winners, Jason Clay and his partner Matt Belzil. This is the Bass Pro Shops. Sorry, it used to be called Bass Pro Shops. Now the Lake Simcoe Open. That's probably the wickedest trophy in all of bass fishing, to be honest. And I've seen trophies like from all over the world. And they won this 30.53 pounds on Lake Simcoe. So yeah, fantastic event. Classic event. It's been around for a long time. It's gone through a couple name changes, but big shout out to those guys for winning that event with 30.5 pounds. It's awesome. So, and Jason Clay the weekend before was running the Canadian Tire Open on Lake Erie. He's one of the organizers of that event, him and Eric Hill. So there he goes. He not only can run tournaments, but he can also catch them too, which is great.
And I would have to say that trophy has advanced taxidermy written all over it.
It does. And there's a lot of big names on that trophy, man. Like there's some big weights that have been caught at a Lake Simcoe and are on that trophy. And that trophy, I don't know the story. It used to be at Bass Pro Shops because it used to be the Bass Pro Shops Open. Yeah. And I remember when they built that trophy, and it wasn't the original trophy. They actually built it and then went back and added the old names for past winners on it. And they used to have it displayed at Bass Pro Shops in Vaughan. So anyways, beautiful trophy. Yeah. So yeah,
very
man.
Cool. And as I said, with the moon phase that it is right now, unfortunately, I think you might disagree, Jay, but because we're at the latter stage of that big moon, you're not going to get the bite, the typical bite that you normally would on any body of water, in my opinion. That is unfortunately staring at that big thing in the sky, because a lot of fish are eating at night that can eat it.
The thing about the moon phase right now is that I think that a lot of fish, they're using it as a feeding opportunity at night. It's been so clear, right? So it's been cloudy and clear. Yes, water temps are dropping, but I think the fish use it as an opportunity to feed. I really do. So, and they're aggressive. They're feeding up for the fall, whether it's a muskie or a walleye or a bass. You know, it's, and the moon has been impressive. I was out working last week on Hay Bay, on Bay of Quinte, and like it was just incredible moon. Like it was coming out early in the evening. It's dark now, so I'm heading down the 401 at 7:00 at night from work to the hotel, and the moon is like I'm chasing the moon. It's always in my rearview mirror coming up in the east. It's really cool, man.
Very cool.
Yeah.
Lots of great comments still coming in from a variety of discussions that are happening while we are doing live. Sonia brought up something in the chat earlier that I want to get to, that perhaps you can weigh in on, because I haven't heard about it. One thing I will say and apologize right now to everyone is I have not been on social media because I've been trying to get caught up with a million things so that I can become more active on social media. Oh yeah, here it is. Hey, did you guys hear they found a live Atlantic offspring here in Port Credit?
It's possible. Like I've seen spawning pairs of Atlantics, or at least trying to spawn, right? So, but you know, it takes a lot of effort to get to be, it takes a lot of, if you're one or two spawning pairs, you have to be lucky to be successful, right? Like that, you know, not all fertilized eggs hatch. And so it's possible. It's very possible. So I haven't heard though. I haven't heard if that's coming.
I haven't either.
From our aquaculture folks or not, but CVC. Okay.
CVC.
You know what? I have some friends over at CVC. I might actually reach out to you and ask. So now on that note, I wanted to give a shout out to our friends at Natural Sports up in he's tying row bags.
I just finished studying for like 5 hours for a test coming up tomorrow, and I'm sick and tired of it. So I'm tying row bags for tomorrow night. But
I wasn't going to judge, Trevor. I wasn't going to judge. I thought maybe you were helping out your sister with something, but row bags, yeah, that works.
I walked into Natural Sports on Saturday. Trevor was actually working at Canadian Tire in Kitchener on Saturday. There was a brand new store opening. So Pure Fishing asked Trevor to go and help out with the store opening. And I said, well, he needs a driver. He doesn't drive yet. So I took it as a chance to go visit my friends in Kitchener at Natural Sports. So I went and visited Ryan Edinburgh up there, and he had this row. And I want to just give a shout out to not just Natural Sports, but there's a bunch of shops now who are carrying quality row products now, right? Like, and what this row is actually from Izumi Aquaculture near Guelph. So they're selling their row to stores. You can't buy it directly from Izumi, okay? And it has to be treated row, so that what they're doing is they're water hardening it. You can't sell it fresh out of the fish. There's some regulations around row I was talking to Ryan about. But either way, what Natural Sports has done is they've taken this, they've used like a brine solution to harden up the eggs. They're actually great. They're great eggs, man. Like, this is rainbow row. They're really hard, like really durable. I'm dropping a couple on the floor here. And they have them on sale for a container, $25 for all that. So, because if you go buy a little container of pre-tied row, that's going to cost you probably like $5 to $10, depending on the shop, right? All of that row for $25 plus tax. So, and I like to tie my own bags. I can pick my own colors. I can make them as big or small as I want. So, Scotty, I just want to give a shout out to Natural Sports. And
now, is it the Izumi I'm thinking of?
Wayne Izumi.
Is this right from Bob's loins?
Yeah. So no. Wayne is Bob's older brother.
It's Wayne.
Yeah.
So I had known they were doing aquaculture, but I didn't know they were doing it to this extent.
Yeah. So you can follow them on Instagram. Just a second.
Isn't that interesting? I had no idea.
So, dude, they sell trout products to like all over, man, like Longo's and Superstore, all kinds of places. So, and I knew they were selling this. I didn't know they were selling roe though. I knew they were selling fish. And if you actually go on their Instagram page, they're pretty active on there, and they're always posting like where they're selling their fish and like some of the restaurants that are serving their fish. They highlight them and partnerships they've developed. And, you know, having like aquaculture is very sustainable. And so and actually a colleague of mine who used to work as a fisheries bio got involved with the sand and gravel groups doing quarry restoration, right? Because that's part of their job. Steve May is his name. I know I'm pretty sure he's still working for Wayne, helping consult on their fish ponds, about better water quality and things like that. So, in most of their ponds, I've just heard this through friends, are located on the right north of the 401 as you drive by Guelph, right near the Schneider sign. So there's a bunch of old quarries in that area, and that's where their main outfit is, right there.
What a small world. Steve May is still, oh, wow.
Yeah.
So, was he still working for the M&R? I thought he would be
he's still working for M&R, but so last time I talked to Steve, and I run into Steve at almost every sportsman show. We always see each other. The last time I spoke to Steve, he worked for M&R for a long time, but then he moved over to the aggregate side of it.
Yeah.
Okay. And what folks may not know this, but when you have a sand or a gravel quarry, and you see these lakes that they've built as they extract the aggregates, they are legislated, these companies, to restore or make these small lakes into habitat. And so Steve, through M&R, was working as basically consulting with the companies to make these functional lakes out of these old quarries. And this is what happens. This is what happens to old quarries across Ontario, right? So anyways, but I think Steve is also helping with the Wayne and his company over aquaculture side. So there you go.
What a small world. And Brad
Steve's a vendor at our show. Yeah, Steve is a fly tyer. That's right. Brad, you are correct. Steve is an avid angler as well, like very avid fly angler. Yeah.
Okay, so I am definitely going to have to at our show make a point of going over and shaking his hand. It's probably 100 pounds ago that I last saw Steve. I know him very, very well with all of the work that I've done with Walleye and of course the Corey, as you know.
Yeah.
That's so interesting. What a small friggin' world.
Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah, it is a small world. And I know Steve because when he was with M&R as a fish bio years ago, there was a Grand River Fisheries Management Plan Committee.
Yep.
And I was on that committee. This is back around like 2003, 2004, 2005. And Steve was the chair of that committee. So.
What a small friggin' world, man.
There you go, man.
That's a blast from the past. We're talking 25 years, 25 years ago that I spoke to Steve. Holy, I can't wait to meet him again.
Now that I think about it, I've known the guy for over 20 years. Now, if I going through those,
I have a top 5 of M&R biologists that I have dealt with over the years, and Steve is definitely in the top 5. He is
he's an avid angler. His sons are avid anglers, and every time he comes, I see him at the Sportsman Show, not professionally. We talk fishing, like we talk. He's an avid fly angler, but he's actually a very well-rounded angler. Fishes with baitcasters, spinning rods, you name it. He's a great dude. So what
a blast from the past.
So small world, and all this from a jar row that I wanted to highlight from Natural Sport. And why I'm going to talk about this briefly, Scotty, before we go. I love the fact that you can buy row now from quality row from tackle stores across Ontario. Whether it's Natural Sports, I know Bill's Bait in Hamilton. I saw Angling Sports is mentioned here, Sparkus. And then what I'll do with this row is I'll take this row, and if I want to change the color, the scent, I use a lot of Potski products. I love Potski Potski, their Boraxifier, for example. So I'll take this row in its state. I'll add some Boraxifier to it, make it a little more pink, a little more orange. Great stuff. Bronte tackle there. Why I'm promoting this is we don't have to be the dirty business of going out to collect our own row.
Yeah.
Like I use pink worms. My Berkeley power worms are always there. I'm always using Creek Candy, Randy's Candy on the steelhead. Row's great too. But now you can buy row, and for $25, like I know it seems like a lot for some people, but that will last me a long. Actually, I bought 2 jars, one for me and one for Trevor and Owen to share because I don't want them touching mine. So that I had because I can't buy one because I had to put rules around the row because I know what's going to happen. So
rules around the row.
Yeah, rules around the row.
Rules around the row.
Absolutely.
Well, listen, before we go, you have to do me a favor because unfortunately I came tonight unprepared.
Yep.
So I was frantically scrambling. And of course, what I needed to know, and this is not common knowledge unless maybe I'm the only one, but when you get a certain weight, like a 13.11, some people have the misconception that weight is 13 pounds, 11 ounces. Which it is not.
Dude, you're going to make me tell this story, and Heather hates that I'm still mad about this story. So I'm going to tell this story quickly about people don't understand decimal places. George, you might chime in on this. You might call me a whiner even, but I'm going to vet my story here. 10 years ago, I was fishing on Emily Creek at the Herons Landing Trailer Park, right where Emily Creek crosses 36. Heather's parents had a retirement. They were in a retirement village just to the other side of the trailer park. So while we were there, there was this old guy. He literally had one leg and an eye patch, and he lived in a trailer at the trailer park. I'm not even making this up.
Okay.
And it was a long weekend in July, and he goes, "We're doing a winner takes all bass tournament, $5 buy-in. Just give me your name. Weigh-ins at the beach at 3:00. Okay. So I've been catching these giant bass all week in Emily Creek. I'm like, I'm going to win this thing. I take out the John boat. I go ripping down Emily Creek. It is hotter than blazes out. The deer flies are bad. I catch 1 4-pounder all day, and I'm ready to come home. And Heather's like, no, I'm with the kids in Bob Cajun for ice cream. You got to wait till the kids come back before you can weigh in your fish. Last dock, last cast, throw it in. I catch a 5 pound, 13 ounce largemouth. Okay. On a flipping bait, on a creature bait. I come back to the weigh-in. I bring it in, and I actually caught the 2 fish I brought in would have got me first and second. I got first place. They said, you're going to give you a trophy and they're going to give you name on a plaque in the hall with the trailer park. I'm like, right on. I'm the champ. I'm the champ, Scotty.
The champ is here.
The trophy's still upstairs, and it says 5.13. 5.13. That is not 5 pounds, 13 ounces. If it was 13 ounces, it would be 5.8 and change. I'm going to round.
He has not let this story down since I was 4 years old, Scotty.
Yeah, this is not changing.
He brings it up every year and won't let it
Every
down.
year we drive by Emily Creek. I bring up that 5.13, not 5.13. There's a big difference between those two. If you have a scale that weighs in decimal pounds, you must multiply the decimals by 16. So so basically the way that translates, and I have it right here, if I have 0.13 pounds, that turns into here we go, 2.8 ounces. Anyways, I'm telling you, it was like 5.989 pounds, not 5.13. So that's my complaint. All right.
So, you know what? It's a great complaint. It's a great story and a great segue to announce who our winner is for guessing the closest, without going over, weight of this Erica Beeler smallmouth she caught. And when it comes to the size of smallie, she was the only one that was able to surpass the 20 inches on that weekend. In fact, she did so 4 times.
Yeah.
I don't know. Again, she's in tune with the fish. She is one with the fish. But needless to say, when it comes to big smallies, she always has a habit of finding them. And it was no different at the retreat. However, when I was talking to Mark Beeler, and he said, Scott, I think you're going to be a little surprised at what it weighed. And I said, well, yeah, I would have figured a fish like that would have been, 5.5, 6 pounds. And he said, I would have thought so as well. And he said, I might be conditioned too much to the St. Lawrence where they fish. Fish in the rivers tend to be a little on the skinnier side because they're in moving water, whatever. But he said, I would have thought the same as you, Scott. I thought it would have weighed a lot more. Now, we had some really, really good guesses. And I will say, some folks missed their calling as weighmasters. So just to go over some of the notables, Richard Dunlop had a guess of 4.2 pounds. Kelly Willert had a guess of 4.14 pounds. Mad Cam, 4 pounds, 7 ounces. Walter Huck at 4 pounds, 3 ounces. 3.8 pounds was guessed by Fish Baits. Mike Howard had a 4.3. So needless to say, there's a lot of folks that were very, very close. Very close. They were sort of dancing around. But the fact that they were in the 4 pound class truly is, I got to tip my hat to you folks, because you have an eye for fish. You have an eye for size, which, I maybe don't. So the Chris McDougals, the Mitchell Berwicks, and the Murray Noski Roccos of the world, I want to fish with you folks, because you, like I, thought that fish was well over 6 pounds. Chris, Mitchell, Murray, I hate to say it, but it wasn't even close. The winner, because Jay was so eloquent to explain to me how the point system works when it comes to pounds, I would have thought our winner would have been Rebecca Carolyn Strong, who guessed 4.1 pounds. But because the 0.08 that fish actually weighed, so the weight was 4.08, the correct weight was Charles Durachi. Charles guessed 4 pounds right on. You were the closest to come to the correct answer without going over. 4.1 pounds actually was too much. So 4 pounds right on, because really at the end of the day, you said 4.08 was actually 4 pounds. How many ounces?
So I'll do the conversion here. So 4.08 is 1.28 ounces. So 4.1 pound is 1.6 ounces.
Yep.
So it's close, but the contest was closest without going over. So if the closest was 4 pounds out of all the entries, 4 pounds is the winner.
Chuck, you get to take home an outdoors flavor prize pack, my friend, for guessing not the exact weight, but the closest weight without going over. This fish only weighed 4.08 pounds. So do the math.
And that fish, to put it up one more time, Scotty. Yeah. I know we've been on here for a while. Now I will say though, for length, that nose is not quite closed. Like that jaw's open just a little bit. It's hard to tell in this picture. So it might not be as long as we think it is, but still, either way, that fish at 20.25 inches. Either way, even if you took off a quarter of an inch, it's still a 20-inch smallmouth at 4.08 pounds. Pretty awesome, man. Like, it's a very skinny fish, is what I'm saying.
It truly is, and was shocking to both Mark and I at the retreat, because I would have thought for sure that.
And those scales are good, man. Those Bubba scales are good, man. I've used them; they're good. Yeah. So I would trust it. So 4.08, that's what it is, man. It's data. That's you can't change it. So
100%. So 4.08. Even Big Jim is chiming in here on my phone, asking what the weight was. 4.08 pounds, and the winner goes to Charles Durachi. Jay, thanks so much for helping out with the scale,
buddy.
With understanding how everything works, and of course, what to do when you have a jar full of eggs.
There you go.
Bad boy. Take care, dude.
Caviar, man. I'll talk to you later.
All the best, man. As always, really enjoyed doing this, guys. It is a passion of mine that I truly love, and the fact that we do have the audience that we have that come here every Monday means the world to me. You have no idea. For those who watch this after the fact, you mean just as much, but for all those who join us each and every Monday and sacrifice their time to do so, to support the channel, to support the community, and support what it is we're doing, I have the utmost respect for you. And of course, without you, I'd be speaking to a mirror, or a screen. So I thank you for that, because I'm sure if I continued down that track, who knows where I would be in a padded room with a straitjacket on. No, I'm just kidding. Listen, all the best. You guys enjoy your week. Get out and enjoy this weather while you can, because it is unbelievable and unprecedented. So get out there and enjoy it. Wet a line or two, catch some big fish, and just enjoy your time out of the water. At the end of the day, it's all about having fun. Dave, it's time to take us away. All the best. Love you guys. Peace.
Well, as much as I hate to admit it, I guess we've run out of time. So I've enjoyed it, but I'm going to do something I haven't done since season 1. Turn out the lights, the party's over. They say that all good things must end.